My name is Brad Morse, and I work here at the Centers for American Indian and Alaska Native Health in Denver, Colorado. And I'm a research assistant on a project called Circles of Life and After School Science. This training video is a video meant for you to get a concept, an idea of what you'll need to do when you implement Session 1 at your club. After School Science is based on the principle or the idea that science is for everyone. Science can be done by anybody, and if you're curious, you'll be able to do science, which is a nice proposition for anybody who's curious about the way things work. So, one really major principle or concept within the project or the After School Science is this idea of literacy. And we'll get to know this literacy connection throughout the sessions more and more as we go through. But what that is an idea that vocabulary is important. So we'll be learning words that are used in science. And we're doing that because if someone is going to work in science, they have to have a vocabulary to talk to their coworkers. So these words will probably seem a little basic to us as adults, but they're great for 10 to 12-year-olds. So now, the youth in your club have most certainly heard these words before, but to give a quick definition of them so that you feel comfortable as we move through the session, science is a critical one, so it's the overarching idea of this whole project. Basic definition of science is a search for knowledge about how things work. And so we can build on that with the other words. Stereotype. Stereotype is what we're going to talk a lot about today. And it's an important idea so that kids can get over the idea that they can't do science. That science is only for a certain type of people. Science is for everybody, like we mentioned before. The definition of a stereotype is a belief that all individual members of a particular group are the same based on fixed ideas about that whole group. So just because you know one person of a particular group who has these kinds of characteristics, then you assume that everybody else, like that person, also has those characteristics. The third word is a collage, and that will be the second project that we do in session number 1. A collage is a collection of pictures and words that we use to describe something. The environment is objects or conditions surrounding us. So at the Boys and Girls Club, we have a club, and we have computers, and we have people working with children, and programming, and feeds, and things like that. So that's our environment in which we're working. The fifth word is role models. And you, my friend, are the role model here, and you will be someone that the youth look up to as they go through this particular project after. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to get some resources together for this particular project. You're going to distribute paper, markers, and pens. And then you're going to ask each of the children in the group to close their eyes and think of a scientist. Give them a minute to do so. They'll close their eyes, they'll think of a scientist, and my bet is that they'll probably go to preconceived ideas of scientists that they see in movies or on television shows. You're going to ask them to open their eyes, and then each of the students are going to draw their scientist on a piece of paper. Ask them to include details like activity, what are they doing? Ask them to draw the scientist doing something. What is that scientist doing? Ask them to include the location. Are they on an oil rig? Or are they in a science lab? Or at a science fair, for example? A location of their choosing. And maybe give them a couple ideas, but allow them and their creativity come through on this particular project. And also ask them to dress the scientist. So give them clothes. And so those are the 3 things that the students are going to be taking from your instruction and putting into that picture. Once each student has enough time, maybe 10 to 15 minutes to draw this picture, you're going to collect all the pictures from the students. and you're going to post them somewhere like on a wall here, or if you have a dry erase board or a bulletin board, you're going to post all the pictures, and then what we would like you to do is go to each student and ask them to describe what they drew. Before doing that, you'll need to explain to each of the youth that they're going to be generating ideas for a composite picture that you will be drawing while this session is happening. So a composite picture is just taking ideas from each of the children's pictures and combining them into an overall picture. So we're going to do a little bit of that here today. So for example, someone said an idea about it's a male. So you'll draw a male. And he has glasses. So you'll draw glasses. And he has crazy hair like Albert Einstein. And so you'll start putting these very wiry gray hairs off the side. And that's a composite picture, the idea that you get one element from each person in the class. So once you've done that, while doing that, you're going to take a list to the side of atypical characteristics, such as female, or someone's wearing a dress, or someone's in a forest. These atypical characteristics that don't go along with the average typical idea of what a scientist is. And you can always reference your manual to look at the composite picture that they suggest that I'm drawing here as well. Then you're going to ask the students, what's missing from this picture? Who isn't represented in this picture? And I have a feeling that the students are going to say people like females, or Native Americans, or African Americans, or people with disabilities. So stereotypes and everything, what we're going to do is go to the second portion of the session. And you'll want to bring out some poster board, a big piece of poster board, and what you're going to write on it, you're going to write "Science is for everyone." And once you do that, then you'll distribute things to the kids, tape, magazines. Magazines like Science are good because they have very good pictures of all types of people doing science in different locations and in natural environments like the prairie or the desert. So you'll get magazines like that, and the idea is to start collecting these products now so that you'll have some for when we do this in the fall. Then you'll give the kids the instruction to go through in groups, in small groups, to go through and cut out pictures and words that they associate with science and who can do science. Once you do that, the group will bring their pictures together and they'll start placing them on the poster board to make a collage. The idea behind this is to destroy the stereotype about the stereotypical scientist and find in our magazines that real instances of people doing science. And at that time, what you'll want to do is probably post this collage up in your club so that it serves as a foundation. What we're doing is creating a healthy environment for science, for the rest of after-school science. So this idea, this thing that's going to be hanging in the club will always be there to remind the kids that they too can do science. So this is a very foundational exercise for the exercises that follow. When you're done with that portion of the project, what I would ask you to do as a facilitator is really think over how the process went. Were you able to answer all the questions? Did students get it? Did they understand the terms that we started with? Were there questions that you were unable to answer? And a note on that is that it's okay not to have an answer. The important thing is to promise the kid that you'll find an answer and you'll get back to them. I think that really builds a nice sense of rapport with the kids so that they start to see that it's a trusting and collaborative or sharing environment that they're working, that their answers will be questioned. It's not necessarily wrong that you don't have an answer, but you'd like to find one for them. Think about things like, did I plan enough time? Did everything have enough materials for the kids? Were we able to go through each portion of the project in a smooth and comfortable way? Were there any questions like, or statements that basically, I hate science? And that's the one we don't want to hear, but that's the one we hope to dispel over the course of after-school science.